Let's see. We do have Max Wolff here. He's got the Bose QC35 2s I see plugged in, just like your boy has right here on the live stream.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
there
These
we
are the
go.
best ones.
There we go, baby. There we go. Okay, so let me just do a quick intro. We have Max. Oh, let me actually change the old. Let me change. Get your mug up here. There we go. We've got Max Wolff from Compound Finance. We really appreciate him coming on. So. Um, I want to set the stage a little bit here. Let me just stall while I whoops. I just flipped to the wrong page here. Let's see here. Boom. Okay, here we go. So Max is an engineer at Compound Finance. He was one of the people instrumental in developing, and we're going to talk more about this. We're going to talk about what Compound Finance is, and we're going to talk about the innovative stuff they're doing with their governance model. And the founder of Compound Finance put me in touch with Max because he was instrumental in that effort. And just to level set here before I give the mic to Max, just so people know. So currently, right now, as I checked right before the show, there's 116 million dollars worth of assets, worth of cryptocurrency on the Compound platform earning interest. So it's a platform that allows you to earn interest, it's in my mind one of the most, if not the most interesting projects in cryptocurrency right now. The way I see it, there's prediction markets. We talked about that on a show last week. There's stable coins, which allow you to transact in U.S. dollars or any could be a euro or not. We're seeing mostly U.S. dollars right now, but it allows you to transact across borders using cryptocurrency, using those U.S. Oh, whoops. Now I transitioned. Boom. There we go. Now we got Max Wolff. Anyway, the third most interesting thing is the fact that you can earn interest on your cryptocurrency, which is a fundamental piece of finance to earn interest on your assets. So, Max, thank you so much for coming on, brother. And yeah, can you hear me okay? Are we good? Are we live?
Yeah, I can hear you great, and thanks for having me on. It's a cool podcast.
Yeah, of course, brother. Appreciate you were on early, so you got to hear us. Me and Ramneek riff a little bit. So I've never had people overlap like that, but thank you. You patiently waited your turn, and I love it. So can you just start by talking a little bit about? I gave a little rough overview on Compound, but I would love to hear your description of it from someone on the inside, and then we'll talk about So just from a high level, assume that the audience doesn't understand, or assume people are new to cryptocurrency. On a high level, what Compound does, and then we'll move into this really cool stuff you're doing with the governance model.
Yeah, so you gave a pretty good intro. Compound is basically a protocol that you can use to earn an interest rate on your cryptocurrencies. We support a lot of the big ones right now that are on Ethereum, so USDC, DAI, ETH, and we can get into what those are. But yeah, it's really easy to use. You basically just supply crypto into the protocol and start earning interest immediately. Every borrow is over collateralized with a different cryptocurrency, which means that it's safe and you don't have to worry about any kind of a credit system or anything. And basically, the reason people borrow and the reason that you can earn an interest rate is that people want to basically margin trade different cryptocurrencies against each other. So if you might want to go long on ETH or short on some kind of crypto. People also use it for getting liquidity on their tokens,
To-
that sort of thing.
Got it. So is
But
that how you guys? Go ahead. Finish that point.
I was just gonna go into the way it's built with the smart contracts and what that gets you.
Yes, talk about
Uh,
that and talk about why that's so powerful because I think it's people don't really grasp how powerful a platform like this is when the fact that it's not a central intermediary controlling all this stuff, and then part of that is what we're going to get into the governance. But yeah, talk a little bit about how this thing ticks, brother.
yeah, exactly. So uh, these sorts of services exist on sort of centralized crypto exchanges. So margin trading specifically, there are some exchanges that you can do that on that people might compare us to in a vague sense. The problem there is that basically centralized exchanges, you don't have custody of your assets when you're using them. There have been a lot of centralized exchange hacks. There have been a lot of malfunctions on centralized exchanges, etc. So to get into how smart contracts solve that, basically you can think of it as, first of all, Ethereum is basically you get trusted execution of arbitrary programs. So what that means is if you write certain code that handles money as our protocol does. So our protocol says, okay, if you send us money, we'll possibly give it to someone else for some other use, and they'll repay with a certain interest rate,
Right.
blah, 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 a bunch of algorithms. We write all these algorithms in something called a smart contract, which is a program that runs on Ethereum, and you get trusted execution of that smart contract, which means that you can be super certain that those rules will be executed exactly the way we wrote them and the way we intended them to be written, interpreted. And if, the way any good contract is written is that it's written in a way that nobody can steal the money all at once. The only person that can access the money is you yourself, the user. So that's the very first intro to what smart contracts are. There's a lot of other cool stuff that you get with it. You can use them globally. You can use them anytime you want, because we can start getting into this concept of decentralized, but we're slowly starting to take out any influence that we, the team, have over the protocol itself over time, which means that even if we shut down as a company, even if we face some kind of crazy legal action, blah, 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 any catastrophic thing, the protocol would still run exactly the way it was intended to run. And what's really cool about that is that it provides, of course, safety for users, less counterparty risk for those folks, but also developers building on top of us. We really want to act as like a neutral platform for them. So something that people can be certain isn't going to change. The fees aren't going to be crazy one day. We're not going to steal all the money one day. We're not going to shut down one day. It's always going to be a safe, neutral thing for you to build on, and people are really building cool stuff on top of Compound, and that's kind of what we're building towards.
Yeah, right on. So I think a lot of people, when they talk about cryptocurrency, they talk about, decentralized, and you have access to your funds and the government can't shut you down. These are all very valid things. But I think another thing you touched on that is a very, real benefit is that people can audit this code. It's not just people within the company. Anyone in the world can look at the code and say, hey, there's a problem. This needs to be fixed. And I like, there's essentially a bounty. There's a bounty on the code of, call it 116 million, however much money is on there, however much money or equivalent is on there, then that's a bounty. Or if any hacker can get into this, and you can think about this with, Bitcoin too, with the market cap, and the, dozens of billions or hundreds of billions. That is a bounty. If you can break this protocol, if you can hack into this, then that money is yours, or at least part of it is yours. So I think there's some inherent security in making these things in these things open. You did talk about margin trading and kind of these these technical things that your average, I think, person, your average person has a bank account, they buy things. They're not margin traders. Do you guys view the Compound team? Do you guys view this as, are you mostly targeted at those people, or do you mostly view yourselves as kind of like a way to make a savings account for the everyman, if you will?
I think of it as kind of a bridge between the two. As a borrower, you are doing a little bit more technical stuff. You're interacting with exchanges. You're taking on different financial positions on different cryptocurrencies. So, for example, our most popular one right now is ETH against dollars. As I mentioned, so you can go long ETH against dollars. But the average user also has a really easy experience here. So all they have to do is deposit a dollar equivalent stablecoin. So it's pretty much just like sending dollars into this smart contract, and after that it's hands off. So that's the same experience you have at a bank as well.
Right.
And
I think the kind of the mind-blowing thing, and because I've played with Compound, and there's some others that are similar to Compound that offer you interest on your cryptocurrency. I actually want to ask about if you have any thoughts on the MakerDAO situation where some of their when the value of ETH was dropping, they had some issues with their contracts, and some people were getting liquidated. I'm curious. I want to hear your thoughts on that, but just quickly, just so people understand how I think powerful this is. If you can, and I've tweeted about this, but you can set up an interest-bearing account in a matter of minutes. Now, assuming you already have the cryptocurrency. Now, it doesn't take very long to get, but you can in very few worlds, in the financial realm, can you have money in an account within a few minutes and have that money earning interest for you. You have to wait for transfer delays. You have to set up the account is often kind of a pain in the ass to set up. So I think it's crazy how much better the experience is and how quickly you can spin up an interest-bearing account with a platform like Compound. So I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, so do you have any thoughts on how, because Compound came out of that whole crisis unscathed when the value of ETH and other cryptocurrencies dropped a lot. Compound remained, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys remained fairly stable and no one got screwed there. But I'm curious how you guys were able to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So to give people a little bit of background, what happened with the MakerDAO liquidations on Black Thursday, as we affectionately called it.
Nice.
Basically the prices of cryptocurrency all fell across the board, more than we've ever seen it fall before. And because the way MakerDAO works is ETH is the collateral, and then you borrow a stablecoin against that. Over the course of a couple hours, all of the collateral was like, I think it was like 50% of the value or something like that. And also there was crazy congestion on the Ethereum network.
Right.
The way that MakerDAO works is that CDPs, which are the loan sort of things that they have in their system, the way that they're liquidated is by auction. So there's a 10-minute auction time where basically the way it works is someone has to pay back the DAI. In return, they get to seize the ETH collateral. If somebody doesn't pay back, if someone doesn't enter the auction within 10 minutes, or if someone submits like a ridiculously low bid within 10 minutes and nobody outbids them, they get to basically pay back less DAI than they should to seize the ETH, if that makes sense.
Right.
So what happened was that because there was such crazy market congestion, transaction congestion on the Ethereum network, and there was such poor liquidity for DAI at the time, it was really hard for people to make an auction bid that they thought was going to be profitable. And a lot of zero DAI bids went through and actually won. I heard that there was also actually a bug in the liquidator code. So they have like a bot that a lot of liquidators use, which use the same way to approximate gas prices. But I mean, that's the basic idea of what went wrong there. They ended up with a $5 million deficit, which they had to later solve with the MKR token.
And how did did anything like on Black Thursday, did anything like this happen on Compound?
No. So we have a different system, which is that we don't rely on auction times. The theoretical reason why auctions might be better, and I think why they picked auctions as a mechanism at the very early days of MakerDAO is because it's a little bit less reliant on a price oracle in those extreme times. Right, so because there's an auction, you don't need a price oracle to set the amount that you have to pay back or the amount of ETH that you get.
Right.
Which is interesting, but as you can see, it backfires like crazy if it doesn't work. So our system is as everything in the Compound ecosystem is as simple as possible, and basically there's no expiration time for when you can liquidate a loan or a borrow rather, and because of that we were able to liquidate everyone on time, and generally there's no under collateralized positions.
Yeah, totally. Do you see this as one of the obviously there's pros and cons to everything. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs, but for for this particular for the oracles, do you see this as, in your mind, the if there is a if there is a weakness in compound, is this the biggest weakness that someone could get access and feed in incorrect pricing data from these oracles? And I know, and if you also in your answer want to talk about Coinbase's new oracle and whether you guys are going to use that. I know the founder of Compound retweeted. He seems excited about it, so I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very astute thought there. The Oracle is a very dangerous and vulnerable part of our system, or at least the most dangerous part.
Sure.
And that's why we spent a lot of effort trying to figure out how we can mitigate that risk. The Coinbase Oracle, I think, is a huge step in the right direction. For most of the markets that we support, the biggest market is on Coinbase. Which is to say that the market price is the Coinbase price, just because that's where most of the trading action actually happens. So we've been working really closely with them to figure out the best way for them to expose their prices in a way that we can use on chain. We have this protocol that we're building. I guess it's like a subsystem of Compound, which we're calling Open Oracle. And the idea is that anybody actually can take Coinbase prices from their API and post them onto our smart contract, which we will later use in the protocol. And because Coinbase actually signs the prices, we can verify that on chain that the prices that you submit are from Coinbase itself. So our goal is to sign up a bunch of other exchanges and basically potentially take the median, or basically figure out what the best way to weight those different exchanges is, so we can have a really decentralized price feed that is also out of our control. So that's something we take really seriously. Security is a huge internal point of focus.
Totally. I'm curious because every time I look on CoinMarketCap and I look at the you mentioned that Coinbase the Coinbase price is typically the is what you guys use as the market price because it has the most I forgot if you used the word liquidity or volume, but if you look at CoinMarketCap, and I don't know if these other exchanges are inflating their numbers, but if you look at the volume traded, Coinbase is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Coinbase is usually not anywhere close to the top. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, and I could be wrong about that, but it always kind of blows my mind that I'll look down and compared to the amount of trading on some of these other exchanges, the volume is a lot higher on those. Is that something that you've seen?
Yeah, it's usually safe to assume that all of the lower tier exchanges are pumping their numbers.
Got it.
Because it's self-reported and nobody enforces it, and it just looks better if the numbers are pumps. Even if they're being honest, they can still do wash trading. If they're in places maybe where the laws aren't as strict about that sort of thing. You can generally assume that numbers from Coinbase are 100% correct, though.
Got it. Right on. Okay, I've always been curious about that. And just while we're on the topic, there's another kind of CoinMarketCap thing. I think it's called Messery, or I don't know how to pronounce it. But it's kind of another thing that tells you the market cap of these cryptocurrencies. Is there something you and your team and like people in that industry use as like the gold standard, or are you guys mostly using CoinMarketCap?
For prices, just casually we'll look at CoinMarketCap. As far as actual volume numbers, to be honest, I'm not too involved in that. I might not have as good answer as someone like Calvin or Robert about that. But I think Masari is better. I think they do some diligence to make sure numbers aren't faked.
Right. I think
there's like a bunch of blogs and research about exchange numbers.
Totally. Okay, cool. Well, speaking of your area of expertise, I want to shift over to the which is something you've had direct work on, the new governance token that you guys will be issuing. That's basically giving away your power, your team's power over the protocol, and giving it to other members. just can you give a rundown on what that's been like, what that's been working like, and just a high level what it is? Because it's blown my mind that you guys announced. I remember seeing the announcement that we're working on this governance comp token thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is some pie in the sky stuff. Like this will be here in two
Right.
years, 2 years if we're lucky. And within a few months or something of the initial announcement, now granted you were probably working on it before that initial announcement. You guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's done. Like I mean, it's working today. So I'm
Yeah.
just huge props to your team. So can you just riff on what this means for Compound as a whole?
Yeah, it's huge for us. As you said, I think we maybe only announced it 2 months ago or so. We
Damn,
like
that's
to
insane.
underpromise and overdeliver at
Right.
Compound. Yeah, it's a lot of people, a lot of teams have been talking about governance, and it's cool to have our system actually in production. It's in a bit of a sandbox phase currently, meaning that although it is fully activated, we own most of the tokens. The team, and our investors own all of the comp tokens at the moment, which means that the balance sheet of Compound still has control over the protocol, although we have delegated to a few people in the community. We're really soon, looking at ways to distribute tokens to the wider community. So you can look out for that. But
Yeah, do you have any
yeah,
plans? Because
basically,
I posted that I was on Reddit and I asked if anyone would have questions for you, and one of the questions I got was, what will it look like for your everyman or anyone just to be able to go, if you'll be able to purchase a comp token, or do you have to be using the protocol to earn comp token, or how will that distribution process work?
it's actually unannounced as of yet, so
Got it.
I can't break too many
No, I
big
don't want to
secrets
pressure
here.
you, brother. I don't want to pressure you here.
But I think everyone's going to be really excited about it. Everyone's going to have an opportunity to participate. Eventually, it will be a token that you can just buy as the same way as any other token.
Perfect, perfect.
So
Yeah, because when this was
stay
when
tuned.
this was live, I was like, okay, cool. Let me just buy a few, just have some fun with it, and maybe be able to
Yeah,
vote on some things. And
yeah,
I couldn't do that yet. Is that the way that? And then I just want one more question, then we'll dive into what this how the token's going to kind of work and how this governance thing works. But is this the let's see, what was that? Actually, you know what? Let's dive into how this is going to how this is going to work and how it's going to people are going to be able to vote on different things in the protocol. Can you just walk us through what you'll actually be able to do with it, and also why move to something like this?
yeah. So it's basically taking all of those ideas I explained of why the system is built using smart contracts, just taking them to the extreme,
Yes.
right? So from a user perspective, you wouldn't the sorts of things that Compound still has control over in the protocol, as you said, is the Oracle, right? We have control over parameters in the protocol. That means interest rate models, adding new assets. In some ways, we can actually modify the code of the protocol itself. Of course, there's like a time delay, and it's totally transparent, and we feel that's is still pretty safe. But those are the sorts of things that we want to give to the community and basically let anybody have a say in deciding. So, as a user, you don't want to have to rely on a single entity or group to keep your money safe. Hopefully, you would prefer to rely on a really broad group of people or a trusted group of people. And
Right.
I think what you've seen with cryptocurrencies in general is that if you create a incentive kind of compatible system, it's actually really safe to trust, for example, like proof of work Bitcoin miners to do the right thing with your Bitcoin. So that's the way I like to think about it. But yeah, for users and developers, for developers especially, I think it's a way for them to feel really confident about the underlying protocol. And we actually think that by aligning the incentives, if a developer on top of Compound can actually hold comp tokens, uh, that will incentivize them to build even more interesting and broadly applicable stuff on top of
Totally.
us.
Totally. And I just remember what I was going to riff on earlier. And that speaking of incentives, is this the way that Compound envisions? Is this kind of the way you guys envision how to make money off this? If you know, if you guys, if you are, you know, you and the creators of Compound, if people start trusting the protocol, the value of the comp token will go up. Is that kind of how you guys envision that you'll make money from this? Or are you collecting? Are you guys getting any fees from the between the interest and borrow rates, or how does I'm curious just about the financial play here for you and your team.
Yeah. Again, I can't talk too much about it, but one way to think about it is that there are protocol reserves that are collected upon borrows and collected from the interest rates, and those sit in the protocol and do nothing but basically provide a buffer for future borrowers and future suppliers, just in case the protocol is under collateralized or something crazy like that happens.
Got it.
Our thought is to continue doing that and not change too much. But you could think of that as a potential way that this token could have value if people that hold the token had say over what to do with those funds. I think that gives the protocol value. I think having say over which way development goes and which sort of things to add to the protocol has value. I think, all of those things are potential ways that comp gets value. Although, of course, that's up to the community. And
right.
As much as we can, we want to push that responsibility to our users, developers, etc.
So is the logical extension of this by the end of maybe 2 years down the road when this is all done and the comp tokens are out there, anyone can vote on things, anyone can stake their tokens to vote on the outcome of these different proposals and stuff. Is it going to be at a point when you've basically cut the umbilical cord and it is fully, there's the only power over the protocol will be completely and 100% in these comp tokens?
Absolutely. Yeah. So even currently, most of the protocol is under the control of the comp tokens. It just happens to be that the community doesn't own the comp tokens yet. But if we want to make a change to the protocol today, barring a few minor things, we basically have to go through the same governance process that is going to be fully operational shortly.
Got it. And I always liked especially I think a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space like to think about, points of weakness. Is there a way with the comp token, are you going to be able to vote on adding new oracles as well?
Probably. I think the oracle stuff is still a little bit under development. There may be sort of the same sandbox stuff that we've been talking about.
Right.
I think it's kind of TBD, but
right.
I think the ultimate vision is to have literally everything be up to vote.
Totally. And I want to be mindful of your time here. This has been super epic. But is there anything, and and you can link this back to Compound, or you can just shoot from the hip yourself here. Is there anything? I love asking this question to on interviews. Is there anything in the cryptocurrency space, blockchain space, that you feel is just people, the consensus is wrong in thinking about? Just as an example, like a lot of Bitcoin maximalists will look at Bitcoin and think that this is the one true ring. This is the only thing that everything else is quote unquote a shit coin, and they won't even look at any other projects. That's one thing that I think, okay, that's ridiculous. Is there something, maybe not at that level, but is there something you're seeing that you kind of just wish you could just kind of shake people in this community, or even shake people that don't understand cryptocurrency in general? And is there something you'd want to say to them, or at least wish that they understood?
Man, I see a lot of bad takes out there, but
right.
Let me think of just one.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a take. It could be a broad, like a kind of call it a category of takes. Like, do people, misunderstand how, oh, I can, one thing I hear a lot of people say, well, I can Venmo someone. Why do I need cryptocurrency? Well, try sending money. And I say, try sending money across borders. Try if you're in Europe, and you're trying to split a bill with some Germans, Italians, and French people. You're all at the table. I don't think that's actually ever happened to me. I'm trying to sound cool. That's never happened to me. But my point is, trying to send money to anyone outside of your own country is an absolute nightmare, and you get fleeced on fees. So that's one thing. Or I say people in the United States can trust their government, they can trust their banking system, which you can't. In many countries, you simply can't. So I'm curious if there's anything like that you think, people within the community or outside the community are just not understanding.
Um, yeah, I guess I'll give you a few. I think the folks that are not in the community that I have conversations like this with, they, first of all, I think, like you said, they kind of underestimate the luxury of living in the States
Right.
and how easy it is to use financial services here, interact with, money and other stuff globally. And they underestimate how hard it is in certain other countries and the value that you could get if you were able to both just give basic services to those other countries, but
Right.
also unite all the countries in a single market, which is what I think all this stuff is going towards, right? People that use Compound could use uh, can interact, can supply crypto and borrow crypto, blah blah blah, from people in any country, anyone with the internet connection. And I think there's also just like short termism when people talk about what this stuff can do today versus what it could do. So, for example, like 2 years ago, when I was first getting into all this stuff, people would say, "All right, well, XYZ protocol is totally centralized. They have control over the oracle and blah blah blah." But
Right.
you don't. It's hard for those people to see that. Okay, well, we build governance, right? And although even today, people are saying, "Well, governance isn't completely ready yet. It's not blah blah blah," right? But
Right.
like it takes a little bit of foresight to just see. It's the point isn't that it's completely done right now. The point is that there's a straight line between where we're at now and this crazy utopia where Compound is completely decentralized and anybody in the community can decide what to do with it. And the role of the Compound team is just completely different than it has been up till now. I think another big one is I personally like to think about the role of like synthetic assets on um, smart contracts and DeFi. Right now, a lot of people talk about it's basically dollars against Bitcoin or dollars against ETH is what people like to trade. With the smaller ERC20s being a little less interesting, but I think there are ways to get a representation of synthetic assets on smart contracts that aren't quite built yet, or are still in like the early stages, as the same way that a lot of these interest rate protocols were 2 years ago.
And when you say synthetic,
Whereas
are you talking about like getting Bitcoin on the Ethereum blockchain? Like being
I'm
able to
talking
trade it?
about getting Bitcoin on the Ethereum blockchain in a trustless way. I'm talking about getting potentially real world assets on the Ethereum blockchain in a mostly decentralized way as well, right? So instead of looking at a security token sort of setup where you have tokenized real estate, blah, 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 which was a huge narrative like 1 or 2 years ago,
And
I
bonds as
think it's
well,
really,
bonds being issued.
sorry?
Bonds being issued. I think there's been some experiments with banks with people issuing bonds on the Ethereum blockchain. Now they've been kind of limited in their scope, but on the order of millions of dollars. So it surprised me. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff being built on Ethereum right now, and it's super interesting. But yeah, it's blowing my mind actually.
Yeah, so it's like, what if you could have an index of U.S. stocks on
Yes.
something like Compound trading against a foreign currency like the Japanese yen or something like that,
Right.
right? Like that's something that totally doesn't exist today. But actually, Compound wouldn't have to be that different to support that. Hypothetically,
Right.
um, it's just it's it's useful to think of this stuff from a long term perspective and what's theoretically possible compared to what's possible today. What if you could interact with this stuff through your Schwab account or something like that? Is
Right.
another interesting one. Like, what's the technical barrier there? I don't think there really is one. It's just kind of legal and procedural insecurity.
Totally, totally. Well, Max, we got Muhammad Raza Panju coming on next. But Max, thank you so much for coming on. I just want to say you're one of the builders out there. You're one of the people pushing this to the forefront and really making strides. You and the compound team and other people working on projects like these. So I thank you for your hard work, because it's super interesting to follow from afar, and I'm super excited. I really think there's something here. There might be something here. There is something here today, and it's only getting better. And to your point about short-sightedism, let's look at long term. Let's look at where we were 3 years ago. So Max, thank you so much. Keep doing your thing, and hopefully we can have you on the show again, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for the praise. Obviously, big shout outs to the compound team for making everything happen as well.
Yes.
And thanks for having me.
Epic, Max. Okay. Thanks for coming on, Brother Beast.